的忠实粉丝，今年是Whitney Tilson第18次来到巴菲特股东年会。去年他在做空 Lumber Liquidators 上大赚了一笔，在平仓之后，现在他又继续把空头目标转向了木材零售商 Lumber Liquidators。这次他又嗅到了什么商机呢？
Hi, Mr. Tilson. Long time no see. Well, we're still curious about Lumber Liquidators. You made a fortune on shorting it. Then you cover your position. Now you're shorting again. So what's your target price this time?
Well, I guess it's less a target price and more a range of possible outcomes. The reason I got back into the short was that the government regulators who were testing the product determined that there was excess formaldehyde and that there was a small risk of cancer resulting from it. And then a scientist looked at their results and realized that they'd made a terrible mistake, a mathematical mistake, and that in fact the cancer risk was 3 times higher because there was 3 times as much formaldehyde in the room based on the tests. And so 60 Minutes and other media gave this widespread publicity. You know, the headlines were Center for Disease Control, mistake, cancer risk of Lumber Liquidators laminate is 3 times higher. And so the research I've done leads me to believe that the impact on the company's sales has been substantial. And this is a company that's currently losing money, and I'm now I had covered my short position based on the belief that the sales might stabilize, and the stock price was already so depressed. Now I'm not sure. We'll see, because they report earnings coming up on May 10th, where they will report first quarter earnings and then give second quarter guidance probably. If they report that sales have stabilized and maybe even started to pick up some, then I will be wrong and the stock will probably do well. My belief is that sales continue to be extremely depressed and that they are probably going to continue to lose money, in which case I think the stock is likely to continue going down, and that's why I'm short it.
Oh, okay. Do you think it will go bankrupt?
If the company continues to lose money indefinitely, they will eventually go bankrupt. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's a very real possibility. Unfortunately for Lumber Liquidators, that name has become associated with cancer, and that's pretty devastating. So we'll see. I am certainly not saying, I'm not predicting it, I'm not saying it's certain, but with the stock at $15 or $16, it doesn't have to go to 0 for this to be a good short for me.
我们都知道巴菲特崇尚价值投资理念，Whitney Tilson 呢也写了一本书，叫做《价值投资艺术》。价值投资听上去跟做空股票是2个不同的概念，但是 Tilson 呢却表示这其实并不冲突。在发掘做空目标的时候，也需要用到价值投资理念。
So you wrote a book, The Art of Value Investing. How do you apply the art of value investing on shorting stocks?
Well, there's a chapter in that book on shorting stocks. Most of the book, though, focuses on how to find good companies and do good research. And really, shorting is simply the exact opposite of going long. So going long, you look for a good company with good management that's being hopefully temporarily misunderstood by the market. It's out of favor, something that causes the stock to be cheap. Shorting is the opposite. You look for terrible companies run by complete scoundrels who have, usually in collusion with Wall Street analysts, have pumped a stock up to ridiculous levels, such that it would probably be overvalued even if it were a good company, but it's not a good company, and therefore you make a lot of money betting on the stock going back down.
加拿大药企VRX 最近一直在风头浪尖上。Tilson 跟 VRX 的忠实拥护者Bill ackman既是好朋友也是校友。那么面对这样一只争议股，他如何看待呢？
So you're a good friend with Bill Ackman.
Yes.
I wonder where you stand on VRX Pharmaceuticals.
Fortunately, I have always put it in my too hard box, meaning I look at many new investment ideas every single day. And sometimes I look at them every day for months. Many smart investors owned Valiant, from Bill to the guys at Sequoia to the guys at Value Act. It was a very popular hedge fund name. And I'm trying to think if I've ever invested on the long side in the pharmaceutical sector. I've definitely shorted smaller, fraudulent, like little biotech, overhyped frauds, right? There are a lot of those. But I've always felt difficulty personally, given that I don't have a medical or research background. I always felt like to own a pharmaceutical company, I have to have an opinion on the company's pipeline, the drug pipeline, because that's what determines the future earnings of the business. And I never felt like I had any advantage analyzing a drug's pipeline. So Valiant, I thought, was intriguing in that it wasn't so much a research-driven company. It was more they would acquire other companies with proven products and then cut costs and, as we now know, raise prices. But that business model always made me nervous because there was anytime a company makes lots of acquisitions, but Berkshire Hathaway makes lots of acquisitions, right? Yeah. But they were making lots of acquisitions with a lot of debt. And a lot of debt in a company is very risky. So I always, I always felt very foolish as the stock went up and up and up and up and up, and I wasn't smart enough to buy it, and everybody I knew bought it. But now, but there's, on the way up and on the way down, I've always felt like there's so many people doing so much analysis on this company. What advantage do I have analyzing this company? And the answer I've always come to is none. And that's, by the way, true of most stocks that I look at. I'm a very small fund. I don't have a big research team. So I need to be very, very patient and wait for situations that are in my sweet spot, where I think I have some sort of edge in understanding this company, and that's the only time I invest. So Lumber Liquidators was one of those cases where I did research and I developed insights that were not widely known to the market, and therefore I was able to make a good investment there.
Wow, that is what Warren Buffett always says, investing in something you know.
In your circle of competence, he calls it. And he and I and every sensible investor is always reading and learning and trying to expand your circle of competence. Right. It's amazing to see an 85-year-old man like Buffett is and be such a learning machine. He's on a very steep learning curve. Right. He's been on that learning curve since he was 10 years old. So he's been doing it for 75 years. But most human beings, when they reach age 60 or 65, they retire and they stop learning. And then they get old and they start to fade. And Buffett at age 85 is still on a very steep learning curve. He is a better investor today than he has ever been in his entire life. Now, at some age, that will not be true anymore once he reaches a certain age. But the fact that he's able to keep learning at such a high rate is an inspiration to me.
今年是美国大选年，巴菲特呢毫不犹豫地把天平倾向了希拉里克林顿。
So Warren Buffett seems like he's supporting Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump.
Oh yes. No,
Do you agree with him?
Buffett has been a longtime Democrat, which is interesting. It's the only area I can think of in which he and Charlie Munger come out on different sides. Munger's a Republican, although I'm sure Munger is horrified by Donald Trump. Munger is a very pragmatic, sensible Republican. It was, I'm trying to remember whether it was 4 years ago or 8 years ago, Buffett hosted a dinner here in Omaha where people like me donated thousands of dollars to, I think it was, I forget whether it was Hillary's campaign in the primary or I think it was in the general election, to raise money for Barack Obama. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does that this year for whoever the Democratic nominee is, which 95% likely is going to be Hillary. So he's, is very concerned about the political state of the United States. And I think he will come out very strongly, verbally supporting Hillary, and will try and raise her a good chunk of money. And I personally support that, and I'm glad, and I hope to come out here to Omaha. When I did this, I forget whether it was 4 years ago or 8 years ago. It was a relatively small dinner. Maybe there were 5 or 6 tables of 8 people, and Mr. Buffett came and spent time having a small group discussion with each table, and that's a rare treat. I will fly to Omaha and write a check to the Hillary Clinton campaign in order to have a relatively small dinner with Warren Buffett.
Thank you for joining us.